Live from the Four Aces Studios, Four Aces Presents brings to you West Coast Bias.
Hey yo, Mr. Suave, what is up?
What's up, man?
So we are back here in Four Aces Studios yet again with another episode of West Coast Bias. I am here this week, unfortunately, only with Mr. Suave. We're waiting on Miss O'Malley to see if she's going to be in a little bit later, but right now, not so much. So, all right, Suave, we'll kick it off like this. Upcoming baseball season. We got the A's and the Giants. You know, A's didn't finish last season so well. Giants finished the season a little bit better. But of course, here we are, year 2016. We got the Giant lovers, is what I'll call them, already claiming victory over the World Series title because it's an even number year. And what are your thoughts on this? Like what do you think the Giants? We'll start with that side of the debate. What do you think the Giants' true chances are of actually being able to win this thing?
Well, the fan in me says that, you know, it's an even number of years, so now they're actually going to make the playoffs and make a run. They did some reloading in the off season. They picked up Shamarja, who we loved as an Oakland A, and we think he can do fairly decent as an innings eater. He didn't necessarily, you know, he wasn't necessarily dominant after the A's traded him, but he was definitely serviceable. And then they picked up Johnny Cueto, who's been pretty darn good, almost, you know, near special level over the last couple of years. Definitely was a helping force for Kansas City, and I was really surprised that they let him go or hit free agency at all, especially considering the type of deal that he signed with the Giants, which is, you know, I believe it's a 6-year deal, but he can opt out after 2 or something like that. I'm not sure on the number of years, but definitely the 2-year opt out definitely stuck in my head. There's a lot of pundits that think that the Giants had the worst free agent offseason, and a lot of fans will tell you that, you know, hey, they reloaded. You know, if Matt Cain can come back and Heston, the young pitcher, I believe Heston, if he comes back and is able to eat up innings as a fifth starter, and you got Mad Bum, who's been, you know, probably their best player the last 2 or 3 years, that they definitely, you know, with barring injury, definitely have a shot at, you know, challenging the D-backs who made a strong push to be relevant, and Los Angeles, who's done nothing but try to become the team of the division. So, you know, they definitely have a shot. It's an even number year. So, you know, as history has shown over the last 6, this is when the Giants are going to get it done. So, you know, the Oakland A fan of me would be happy if they did make the playoffs, you know, so we can get over this, you know, odd year, even year bull crap, you know. But, hey, you got to give it to the Giants. Even number year, they doesn't matter how they get in, they win. So, you know, you got to tip your hat to the Giants and the Giants fans, and you got to just grind your teeth or grit your teeth because you know that that's going to be the talk all year until they either are eliminated out of the playoffs or they get eliminated in the playoffs. So I definitely think they have an opportunity. I like Samardzija. I like Cueto. I'm not sure why a lot of other pundits are kind of souring on them, thinking that they overpaid, especially when it doesn't matter how much you pay a player in baseball. It makes no difference because there's no salary cap in baseball. So it doesn't matter what they paid for him. You know, the fact is that they got him. So they definitely have a strong, I'd say, 1-2-3 with Mad Bum, Cueto, Samardzija, and if Matt Cain can find himself and find the player that he used to be, that's a bonus. And then you have Heston on the back end. And there's still talk that they might try and sign Lincecum possibly, because Lincecum supposedly at some point by the end of this month is supposed to, show off that he's changed some things about himself and is ready to become the pitcher he used to be. That's far to be seen, but, you never know. Maybe he can rekindle something. So I definitely think they have a shot, and I'll keep saying that up until the point they're either eliminated or they aren't able to make that strong, even number year run.
Now, the A's, on the other hand, have kind of gone a different direction with it. I do kind of like the way that the Giants went out and got Cueto, went out and got Samardzija. I still don't think that all their problems got solved with those two acquisitions. I think the Samardzija is too erratic. I think that he will keep the games close. But I also think the Giants haven't necessarily gone out and solved their bullpen problems, and Ono Romo isn't exactly the most reliable closer in the game. So I think that they still have other areas that they need to work on before they're a lock. But I definitely think that them working their giant magic on this even number year is not out of the realm of possibilities. I think that the A's, on the other hand, have a little bit farther of a stretch to go, but they have the return of Gerard Parker. They potentially they still have Sonny Gray anchoring the staff. Rich Hill they added this year. They actually added some beef to their bullpen as well, signing Ryan Madson, and they just recently traded for Chris Davis, an outfielder from Milwaukee, another what they consider power bat. So we got a lineup that will consist of some kind of combination of Coco Chris. Billy Burns probably at the top and bottom of the lineup. You'll probably have Billy Butler hitting out of the 4 or the 3 spot as usual, and then you'll probably have who else was it? Chris Davis, hitting probably 4th or 5th. Depending on where Butler's hitting, but he'll probably be hitting out of the power spot of the lineup. But the A's have some good pieces offensively. And I think if they can crank it up offensively, they might be able to get the job done. But I definitely have to see what we're going to get out of this pitching staff this season before I can make any type of true statement about where this team is going. Suave, your thoughts on the A's going into this spring training?
Well, I wish I was as optimistic as you are. But to be honest, this is year 2 of the rebuild. And while I definitely like some of the pieces, I think Simeon showed some things, even though he was terrible defensively, and they went out and brought back Coach Washington, who really helped develop players like Chavez and Tejada into defensive all-star type players. So I'm hoping that Simeon has learned from last year and has grown defensively. They go out and they bring back Jed Lowry, who they let go in free agency, and then they bring him back. Typical A's move. Yep. The starting rotation. I love Sonny Gray. He's an all-star. He's the best pitcher in the organization. I like Graveman, youngster. Hahn, Hill, and Bassett, I'm not too sure. Gerard Parker, they don't know when he's going to be back. I do love Doolittle as the closer. I like Madsen coming in for relief with Axford, but there's still some question marks there. Got some new faces, Rodriguez, Hendricks, and the guy whose name I can't really pronounce, Repsinski.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I don't know. I'm just going to call you Ski, bro. You feel me? I hate to, cut your name like that. But offensively, depth-wise, I do like this team. You got Stephen Voigt, who really kind of came out, even though he's on the end of his prime years already. He finally had kind of a breakout year. Jed Lowry, I like him back in the A's uniform. Simeon offensively, fantastic. It's just his defense that really needs help. Josh Riddick, you really hope he can have kind of I wouldn't necessarily say a bounce back year, but I would like to see him elevate himself just a little bit. Billy Burns, I really like a lot. Coco Crisp is now kind of one of the main backups, including designated hitter. I'd like to see a ton more out of Butler. They signed him as a free agent, 3-year, $30 million deal. But last year, we did not get $10 million worth of statistics. So I'm hoping that this year he's able to make up for it and is able to push himself into an all-star type candidate.
Yeah.
So it's year 2 of the rebuild. I don't think Sonny Gray is going anywhere for the near future, so he's definitely a starting pitcher you can build around. I love Bob Melvin as a manager. I think he's done a lot of good things. He's had some brain farts, and hopefully he's learned from them. The last time that Billy went all in, he brings in the no names at the end of the game that basically coughed up the game when you had, the main names who should have gone in regardless of how he felt. So he's had a couple of instances where I guess in his mind he also went all in on it and tried something new at a time when he should have just gone for the known quantities, and it really got us bounced out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
But offensively, I like this team. It has a lot of question marks, and the strength of the team over the last handful of years had been the relief pitching, and that's not necessarily something they're going to be able to fall back on. It's fluctuated between relief pitching and starting pitching, and neither of those right now is a strength as currently constructed. If whatever starter's pitching can get to the 6th or 7th inning, and the relief pitchers can come in, well, then the strength is really at closer. You got Sonny Gray, who you can almost count, 3 times out of 4 starts, he's going to get a win if the offense can support him. So Doolittle can close it out. I have faith in him. It's just can the relief pitchers eat up those 1, 2, and 3 innings to get to Doolittle is going to be the question. So it's definitely going to be some good learning for Bob Melvin. He'll definitely have to lean heavily on his relief pitching to squeeze out some wins. He's going to really have to figure out how to use his new guys, including Manson. So as a whole, I like the offensive potential of this team. Defensively, it's still a question mark, mainly because, let's be honest, Simeon brings you down a bunch until he's shown that he's grown as a defender. But if he does that, I don't think the A's are going to challenge for the division this year. But if they can remain close and build confidence, it's definitely something that can bode well for the future. But I would definitely expect this to be the last year that Josh Reddick and Coco Chris are Oakland Athletics. I expect them to be traded by the trade deadline for some young talent that probably needs 2 or 3 years to come around. They'll probably go. Last year, the A's were ending players out, like Ben Zobrist. He wanted to come. He played pretty well. We trade him off. He goes off and wins a ring. So I've got a feeling that the same thing is going to happen this year. Either Reddick or Coco Chris are going to go to that one team that's going to win it all. So everybody should keep their eye open, because if Reddick and Chris get traded, one of those teams is probably going to win the title. Yeah. So, put your money down the second they get traded.
Just keep an eye out for it, huh? I can definitely see them being traded someplace else by the time the season is over next year, but it also depends on where the A's are at. I also could see Billy being steady and pat. If the A's are actually meshing well and playing well, he may just hold on. But the last thing we'll kind of touch on baseball, man, is actually kind of transitioning us into our NFL draft talk. Recently, the Raiders re-signed a 1-year lease at the Coliseum, which to me doesn't mean diddly squat. In regards to whether or not the Raiders will stay in Oakland. I'll be honest with you, over time after the thing in Inglewood fell through, it's beginning to kind of feel like Mark Davis doesn't want to keep the team in Oakland. Why? I don't know, and that may be completely false, but based off of what his statement was when they re-signed the lease. But really, for a minute there, it just really looked like he just didn't want to keep the team in Oakland, looking at venues in Las Vegas, San Antonio, etc., and even going as far as to say San Diego was an option should the Chargers, which they did ultimately, accept the move to Inglewood. Your thoughts from the A's perspective of Lou Wolf's response to Mark Davis's statement about basically it's the A's fault why the Raiders can't get a new stadium and why the Raiders have been stuck where they're at.
Okay, well, while it's true that he signed a 1-year lease, I think his dream is to stay in Oakland, first off. But I think that I've been saying it for many episodes, the Raiders are ownership-wise one of the poorest teams in the NFL. And if you notice, the places that he's actually gone to look at, San Antonio, LA, Las Vegas, all those opportunities don't involve the Raiders actually being the ones to build the stadium. You got the LA Rams who were fully dedicated to building the stadium on their own because their owner Stan Kroenke is, a billionaire. And then you had San Antonio, who was going to use taxpayers' money and people around San Antonio to bring the Raiders in because, let's be honest, as soon as the big three of San Antonio Spurs retire in basketball, they need another draw to bring in. They're hopeful that the Spurs can stay relevant once the big three really retire, and it's Aldridge and Leonard show. But we've seen how that affects certain teams. That's a lot of experience chopped off your roster. So there's no telling what's going to happen to the Spurs in the future. So they want another draw to come in. If you talk to Heather, she say, there's only two attractions in all of San Antonio, the Riverwalk and the Spurs. So now you'd add a third attraction for 8 times a year or whatnot, depending on if they were forced to play in London. And then you had Vegas, also another billionaire, who's building a stadium regardless of whether the Raiders are coming or not because he wants to build a stadium for UNLV. So it's a bargaining tool for Davis. It's something to kind of put a little bit of pressure on Oakland to try and, ante up a little bit extra on what they've been hesitant to give up. But, when it comes to the A's are the stumbling block. And even though Lou Wolf came out with his statement saying that he is in no way stopping the Raiders from doing whatever they have to do, let's be honest. The Oakland A's could get together with Mark Davis, and they could have already built the Coliseum City idea instead of Oakland having to go out and look at Chinese investors who don't even live in the area. They live in China, and they're Chinese investors, and they were literally going to own probably one of the most prettiest parts of Oakland if they had felt the opportunity was right to do it. But with the teams all leaving, namely, I'll be honest, the Warriors pretty much killed the Coliseum City idea. If the Warriors stay, the Coliseum City idea probably gets underway. The Raiders would probably put in as much money as they possibly could, and it probably would have already been built by now or be in the process of being built. But the Warriors leaving to Frisco and building their own stadium, on the technically on the water over by the Giant Stadium, pretty much killed Coliseum City. Especially considering the A's are not championship contenders, which makes a huge deal. The Raiders are just now getting to the point where you might be able to talk about them as playoff contenders, not Super Bowl contenders, just getting to the playoffs. And we've seen the power of a team that even if they're not winning Super Bowls, if they're getting the Super Bowls or getting the championship games for the chance to get to the Super Bowl, we saw what happened for the Niners. All those years, basically a decade and a half of trying to get a new stadium built, it was no. The Niners were stinking. They only had a handful of good seasons when Mariucci left, and it was just no's across the board. No this, no that. No private investors wanted to come in. And next thing you know, they bring in Harbaugh. They go on this streak of awesomeness where everybody thinks like, oh, man, this is going to last 10 years. And, you've got 3 NFC title games and you got a Super Bowl loss and everybody's like, yeah, well, we'll get it. Let's do it. Let's buy in on the A's or let's buy in on the Niners. And they got the money. They went to Santa Clara, bought the land, built the stadium super fast, and ownership kind of let everybody down in a certain sense. But still, that little 4-year window of winning, that small infant, when you think about the grand picture of the NFL, that 4-year window of winning for the Niners helped build them a stadium.
Well, I can say that. I can say that it's the final nail in the coffin. I don't know if it's necessarily the whole reason, because there have been talks before the signing of Harbaugh that the Niners were looking to move and were looking at potential locations in Santa Clara. Something that you said,
those final pushes didn't happen until the team started winning. It didn't really. It was there. I give you that. They were talking about it, but it didn't gain full-on traction until the team started winning.
Well, okay, but what I was going to bring up was this, okay, in the process of all that. I think you stated what the major issue is at the very, very beginning. And I hate to say this because I know the Davis family has owned the Raiders since the beginning of time, damn near it seems like. But Maybe it's time for Mike to sell the team to somebody who has more money. Because I'm thinking what's stopping the Raiders from being able to get the stadium in Oakland as well as get a stadium with a lot of other with a lot of other places is the fact that they want the city and the taxpayers to fork up the bulk of the money and or in the NFL to bulk fork up the bulk of the money. And in a lot of the newer stadiums that are being built, the team is at least one of the top two people in the amount of money or in the amount of money being put into the stadium. You see what I'm saying? Like Santa Clara and the Niners put in more money than anybody else into that stadium, and then the NFL helped out, which allowed it to grow to a $2 billion stadium. But the Niners and Santa Clara were willing to put up a good portion of that. What it seems like the Raiders are saying is that y'all need to put up 70% of it, and we'll come up with our 25 and find 5% from someplace else. And they're like, no, 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 no. Like you guys need to put up more than just 25% of it. You feel what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
see that
I,
idea would work if the team was winning. I mean, not winning Super Bowls, just winning.
yeah,
Winning cures a lot of ails. I mean, even the Warriors. If the Warriors were stinking, I don't think they get that stadium in Frisco to get past. The city would be like, why?
yeah,
We lost out on the Niners. Why would we want to bring a stinker over? But because they're winning, that helps to grease a lot of wheels.
yeah,
And I kind of use an analogy. Each sports team is a train, and when the train is kind of humping along, the owners are putting the coal in the engine and making it go faster. And once you start winning, you get more people to put in more coal, and you go even faster.
yeah.
So for I really think that the A's and Raiders could come together for a cohesive plan, and because the A's are also looking to leave, or had been, or flirted with leaving, however we want to put it. I think that's been to a detriment to all the franchises, because I truly believe that if the A's had stood put 10 years ago and just built their own stadium, not even the Coliseum City, but just built their own stadium on the Coliseum site, that a new Jewel ballpark might have swayed Lacob to keep the Warriors in Oakland and build his Jewel next to that Jewel. I mean, why is he moving 4 blocks from Pac Bell? Because it's considered one of the best ballparks in all of the area. It's not just the fact that San Francisco has all the money. There's plenty of corporate places that come to Oakland as well. You got Clorox, and I mean, hell, Oracle's in the South Bay, and they're not even really located in Oakland or nothing. So we got Oracle. We had McAfee for a while. Well, McAfee was one of the big security technology places in Silicon Valley. So the corporations will follow if you get a winning product. So
Yeah.
I really think that the Raiders and A's could come together, and they could both build each other a stadium, and two stadiums, not a dual purpose, but a double stadium. The A's are the fifth richest ownership group. They have the money. They could have been done it on their own, no less.
But what I'm trying to say
it also comes to the
is that here's once again, I go back to this only because this is the only like bad part of the deal when it comes to any type of stadium situation with the Raiders. It's kind of like the same thing that I said about them talking about moving the Raiders into Santa Clara, into Levi Stadium. Y'all didn't put any money into that stadium. That's a $2 billion stadium, and like 70% of it is taken up by the Niners and the city, in the county of Santa Clara, or the city of Santa Clara. I'm like, so I'm sorry, they shouldn't get this nice new jewel of a stadium if they didn't put anything into it, just because they don't like their home in Oakland. And so I kind of think I think that there's a lot of investors, or there's people like Lou Wolf, who look at it and go, wait a minute, in order to build you a nice new football stadium, I'm going to have to spend $750 million. You can build me a nice new baseball stadium for $250. So how the fuck, just because I got the money to do it, how the fuck is it that I'm paying for damn near $1 billion stadium and y'all barely paying for, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can see where as investors, it's like, wait a minute, if you're not at least matching my investment, why should I invest with you? And
Well,
does
see,
Mark Davis really have the money and equity in the team of the Raiders to say I can match whatever you're putting up?
well, here's the thing. For the A's, it's not so much that they don't like Oakland. It's
Yeah,
the fact that the city owns the land that the stadium is on, so
right.
they're cut into the profits. And the wave of the future for most franchises is getting privately owned land where the tenants basically reap all the revenue for themselves. They don't have to cut the cities into anything.
Yes.
That's part of the reason that the Warriors are leaving the Frisco, because the city gets a one-time revenue boost, besides the fact of jobs and things like that, but a one-time boost. But after that, the Warriors are collecting almost every dime. I would say
Those
90,
$30
95%
parking
of the
fees. Yeah.
revenue. Yeah, so I think that's why the A's are looking to move, is because Fremont was like, hey, we've got land, you can have it. They were going to build on a Numi site that wasn't doing anything until Tesla bought it and started doing their thing. Once they found out that the A's weren't going to be able to move, Tesla bought it up. But the A's were going to be able to own that land and make all that money. And then they flirted with San Jose, because San Jose said the same thing. And, they were willing to kind of, lump the taxpayers into it. But, it really came down to, privately owned land and the city not collecting as much revenue and the A's collecting more revenue, because as we've seen from Lou Wolf, he's all about revenue over the team itself. It's history, all of it.
That's just so
For Lou Wolf, it's all
ridiculous.
about the almighty dollar. And for Lou Wolf, he doesn't care about Oakland. He doesn't,
Yeah.
the A's are an asset. It's not he doesn't own the A's for the love of the game. I would even look like a guy like Bud Selig. He owned the Brewers, small market team, got them a stadium built, and then, he's kind of, and I'll give Selig some credit, he helped the A's or the A's fan base monumentally when Lou Wolf bought the team, because I'm sure Selig didn't expect Lou Wolf to, after he was able to buy the team, to just try and move him at every opportunity, even trying to force an ownership vote, and which Selig asked him to could not do. Selig had to step in and say, hey, bro, hold your horses. Don't bring that up at the winter meeting. I don't want us to have a vote, because Selig actually appreciates small market teams and the history. It'd be different, I would think, if the A's didn't have titles in Oakland, but I think that history, 2 3-peats in 2 different decades, relevant for, most of the 90s. Didn't win any rings because, hey, we were going up against the Yankees, and really almost no one was beating the Yankees except for a handful of teams here and there. So it was tough for the A's to get over the hump in that aspect. But the A's have been, technically relevant. The fans showed up, filled up the stadium, and we hadn't started as A's fans having attendance issues until Lou Wolf really started looking like he was going to move the team. And that's the second people said, well, why am I giving you my money?
Yep.
It's not like you're winning titles. You're not pumping money into. That's the thing that makes me laugh. If Lou Wolf had done for the A's what Lacob has done for the Warriors, pump money into it. Yeah, we know he's leaving, or the Warriors are leaving, but he's still pumping money into it. He's still trying to make them contender. And next thing you know, they won a title. Well, Lou Wolf probably could have got the same thing and still kept the sellout crowds, and probably might have been able to move the team. Who knows? But because he's been, collecting that $30 million revenue check at the end of the season, from the revenue sharing of baseball, other owners are kind of like, wait a minute, why are we going to let you move to make money when you've been collecting money off everybody's back for the last, 10 years? You got, and owners have to recognize they're the 5th richest ownership group in all of baseball. There's only 4 other ownership groups that have more money or more capital. And you guys have basically been collecting checks, that kind of thing. It might be an old boys club, but the old boys take notice.
Yep.
When you do that kind of crap, when you play the welfare card, so I think that 3 things. One, I think the Warriors leaving really kind of scuttled a lot of things that could have happened, and it really begins with the A's and them trying to move. I think that if the A's had stayed pat, built the stadium, whether it had been in Jack London, the Howard Terminal, or on the Coliseum site, I think that would have boosted the chances that the Warriors would have never wanted to leave.
Yeah.
I think that it's easier when someone starts breaking ground and having ideas, it's easier for other teams and ownership groups to get in on an idea. And while the Raiders are technically poor in the sense of ownership, I think that Mark Davis could get enough capital behind him and investors if everyone else was kind of jumping in on it. You know, and even if it was just the A's, you know, just to get another franchise in on it to lessen the money for and need. I mean, you know, if you're talking about Coliseum City, well, that entire idea, they were talking about $1.5, $2 billion. Well, the Niner Stadium was $1.5, $2 billion by itself. $2 billion could have got all three franchises, a new arena, new stadium, new Coliseum, for all three franchises for about the same price. So, and the prices have only gone up, unfortunately. But I think it's time for the A's and Raiders to get together. Lou Wolf sit down with Mark Davis and say, hey, baseball's forcing me to stay. Let's get something done. I mean, especially once the Warriors leave in 2019 or whenever it is, and we technically tear down the Coliseum or the arena, Oracle Arena, because I have a feeling that, I mean, there's a couple opportunities for the arena to still stay viable in a sense. You know, they do concerts, they do NCAA tournaments and things like that. They've kind of died down over the last 10 years or so, but the arena is still a usable venue for the most part. It's not a gargantuan money maker by any means, but hey, any money is good money in that aspect. So there's a possibility that they don't just tear it down. But I think if they get a commitment from the A's and Raiders to work together, I think the arena gets torn down. You get your new baseball stadium on that site, then they tear down the Coliseum. The Raiders go play in Levi's for 2 years or 3 years, or they go play at SBC Park because we know it can be converted into a football stadium.
Fuck it, let them go play at Memorial.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be against that. He also mentioned that as a possibility too, because they just got finished doing their renovations. So, you know, then the Raiders and A's could limit the cost between themselves as well as getting some outside investors. Because there have been investing groups like the ownership of Clorox. They wanted to buy the Raiders, but Mark Davis said hell no. You know, so he has enough money to own the team. He just doesn't have enough extra capital to be able to just splurge $1 billion and build his own thing. You know, and there are a couple other ideas like tearing down the infrastructure of the Coliseum itself and only spending $500 to $600 million to rebuild the entire inside of the Coliseum. You know, from the ground up, just totally dig it out like an old used can and fill it up with all kinds of nice new goodies, and which is really cost effective when you think about it. And then the A's could, you know, build their own new stadium. So on the site, while they share a stadium, then the Raiders would have to find an alternate site to play for a couple of years while the Coliseum is gutted and refinished, and the A's would just be waiting for, you know, the arena to be torn down and to build their new site there. So there's definitely an opportunity for the two sides to come together, but I definitely think that Lou Wolf and him saying he wasn't holding back the Raiders, it has been a bit disingenuous because he doesn't think like the average fan saw what was written in the lease. I mean, the lease basically says if the Coliseum is torn down, they get the right to move. And it's almost, and it's seemingly scarily just like when he wrote in his contract with previous ownership of the Oakland A's, hey, if I can't find you a site to build a new stadium, then I get the right of first refusal to buy your team. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, Lou Wolf couldn't find one. He gets the right to buy the A's first, and now we've had all these problems 10 years later. I would have liked to see had another ownership group be brought in, if they would have already built us a stadium. I mean, maybe the team from 3 years ago is still our team right now, and we're looking like title contenders or at least true playoff contenders versus teams looking to rebuild or retool. So I think both ownership groups need to get together. Even if the Raiders have to take out, say, maybe a loan or get a loan from A's ownership, because make no mistake, A's ownership has billionaires behind Lou Wolf. Lou Wolf isn't a billionaire. He's a 100 millionaire. There's no doubt about that, and probably on his way to being a billionaire. So technically, yeah, he does own the A's, but outside of the A's, he's only worth like $500 million or something like that. And it's really the guys that are worth like a couple of billion that are behind him. So if the Raiders and A's can get together, I think that there is a viable idea. with the Warriors leaving and going to Frisco. I still think Coliseum City could happen. And I would also say that because the Warriors are leaving, it would actually open up an opportunity for Lou Wolf to get his strip malls, get a couple of office buildings built up. Because that's one of the things some Warriors fans don't understand is that one of the main reasons, besides the fact that it isn't just the Warriors at the Coliseum site, I think had a big factor into it. When they moved to Frisco, they're not just building an arena. I mean, a lot of people look at the arena, the little mock-ups that they've done and go, oh, yeah, that's going to be great. They forget the Warriors aren't making any parking. What they are building is 3 office buildings that overlook the park or overlook the arena itself. So that way they can get all that money from leasing out, office space from 3 buildings, and they kind of look at the Giants. When the Giants built Pac Bell or SBC or AT&T, whatever the hell it's called now, when the Giants built their thing, next thing you know, all these high-rise buildings started sprouting up right next to the damn arena or stadium. Yep. And next thing you know, you've got all these loft apartments worth like, $4,000 a month, overlooking the stadium. So, kind of crazy, but that's just what, the new, it used to be, that's why I like Jerry Jones. That's why he really has a soft spot for me, because he didn't ask for a ton of money from Dallas or anybody like that or the state of Texas or none of that. He used a lot of his own money. He got his own private investors, and he built a stadium. And when I say a stadium, he only built a stadium. He didn't build any. There aren't any office buildings around Dallas's Jewel of the Stadium. Yeah. There aren't any apartment complexes around it. There aren't any strip malls. The only thing at Dallas Stadium is Dallas Stadium. Yeah. And I respect him for that. I mean, he could have built a crap load of office buildings and all kinds of, and let's just call it frivolous crap around a venue that generates more money. But he understands, all I need is the stadium. I'm going to pump in all my money on a stadium. I'm not looking to get any high-rises built. I'm not looking for apartments. I'm not looking for a strip mall that sells Dallas everything. I mean, so that's why I really respect him as an owner. So I think it's time for the Raiders and the A's to get together. They can pool their money, and if the Raiders can't generate enough capital behind them, let's just say they only have $500 million to splurge, because Mark Davis is worth $500 million. The NFL gave him basically $200 million. So that right there, you consider half his net worth he can get a loan for is $250 plus the $200 million. That's $450 million. And yeah, he probably won $1 billion stadium, but it's not necessarily needed. So whatever's missing, he could get that from A's and kind of just pay them back over the next 20, 30 years or whatnot, and then have, then unfortunately by the time he pays them off, he's probably going to want a new stadium again. But still, maybe if he can get a winner and raise the value of the team, because that's part of the other thing. When the Niners moved, they were worth a lot of money, but just in those 4 years, they doubled the net worth of the asset of the San Francisco 49ers. And that's what winning really does. It's not just the titles you get and the rings and the players and the greats and all this and that. What you really want as an owner, when you're not truly interested in the sport, or I won't even say that, when some owners want money and some owners want the sport and want to win in the sport. And there are some owners that want to do both. There's no doubt about that. I'm not going to harangue every owner. But what they all want is to be able to win and to be able to raise the net worth of the team. And the Niners, they were probably a $1 billion franchise when before the stadium was bought. But now because of the stadium, they're probably a hair under $2 billion. And we've seen what's happened to the Warriors who play at Oracle. They were worth $800 million. They sold for $450 million after the original owner had bought the Warriors for $150 million. So it went from 150 to 450. The Warriors are worth $1.5 billion. They're one of the upper franchises in the NBA, and they haven't even built a new stadium yet. So once they get that arena built, they might be worth over $2 billion, considering by the time it's actually built, they're probably going to be multiple-time champions of the NBA and probably the current, du jour team of the NBA. So I think that, Mark Davis could do some things. If the product on the field starts to win, I think the investors will kind of come to the gates, because that's what I think a lot of investors are waiting for, especially when you talk advertising and things like that. Advertisers want to put their name on a winner. Or if they can't put their name on a winner, then they want to put their name in the stadium where a winner plays.
Right.
So I think that more revenue will come in once the product has started to win. So I think that if the Raiders can start winning, and if the A's are still kind of treading water, I think that'll play better into the Raiders' hands in being able to join together to get something done. Because I think baseball's made it clear the A's are going nowhere. They're not going to be allowed to go nowhere. And even this thing about the 10-year lease they signed and them having that out clause, if the Coliseum gets torn down or the Raiders get to build a new stadium and they get to bounce out, they still have to get approval. And already the new commissioner, he's got my heart. I mean, I don't care what the hell he asked me. He's got it because he already told Lou, well, to hell with that, you're staying in Oakland. And that right there means that even if the Raiders do find a way without Oakland start building a stadium, the A's aren't going to be allowed to move just by the commissioner. Yeah. So I think that bodes very well. So Lou Wolf, and I think that might have been what Lou Wolf was saying, even though we all know the lease that he signed and how it was worded to allow them an opportunity to leave if the Raiders got their stadium. Yeah. But I think he might have said that because he understands that the new commissioner is going to be even more hardline than Selig was. Selig, I think, him and Lou Wolf are buddies, and Selig was like, hey, bro, maybe. And then when Lou Wolf got tired of waiting, Selig was like, hey, bro, do me a cool college buddy favor. Don't ask just yet. And then Selig retires, and the new guy comes in, and new guy's like, no, I ain't having that. It's too late. None of that. No, you can't leave. You're staying in Oakland. So Lou Wolf was like, well, damn. So, I think that both teams need to come together, and I think that it can be possible in the next 2 or 3 seasons. I think it'll be even easier once the Warriors actually leave, so there's another opportunity to build one of those teams a new stadium on the arena. So and also there's one other thing I'd like to point out. At what point are we going to have at stadiums and arenas and cities and stuff inside parking? I mean, it doesn't need to be a ton of it. I know everybody wants, especially the NFL, they want their tailgates, and I understand that. That was
actually no. The NFL is actually going the route that they've already began to ban tailgating at Super Bowls, and they're talking about eventually banning tailgating at stadiums altogether.
Well, once it actually passes, I'm sure Mark Davis will be one of the few votes that'll vote no, since that's been one of his biggest hangups. And the city of Oakland just kind of conceded that they'll have open air parking, so that way people can come out and barbecue and do their tailgating, because that's one of the things as a Raider fan that if you want to see a Raiders game, you have got to go to a tailgate. You should not just come to the game and be there 30 minutes early, get to your seat. Nah, if you come into a Raiders game, and they're not the only ones. I don't want to sit here and be preaching like Raiders are the only ones, but they're not. But if you want to enjoy an event like NFL football, you need to come in 5-6 hours early. It's an all-day event. You go out, you hang out with basically your family, other fans of your team or your family. And for the most part, even though both teams, like the Niners and Raiders, have had some scuff-ups and some dummies out there, some bad fans, some bad apples, a lot of the majority of fans are good and good-hearted, good-natured. There might be some gentle ribbing and stuff with the opposing team, things like that. But for the most part, it's a welcoming environment in Frisco or Santa Clara and in Oakland. So you really want to experience that thing. And I can understand if you do inside parking, because I think that's one of the big things. You've got this huge plot of land where you've got to dedicate 50% of that to parking. Well, what's up with parking underneath the stadium? I mean, most of the time, the only people that park underneath the stadium, because there is parking underneath the stadium, it's just not for everybody. Yeah. The players and the uppity up, the mayor, the president, those people get to go inside. Well, it's time for them to build inside parking, so then you can have an opportunity to build more things on the plot, and maybe that would be what the A's, and even the A's, maybe the A's do it, and they build the underground parking, like 2 or 3 levels of underground parking that are actually underneath the stadium, and then because they don't really care about tailgating, even though there's tailgating there because of how it's built, but then that will, open up some parking lots. Well, hey, go ahead. If you want to build a skyscraper or whatever, an office building, go right ahead, right there, do your thing.
Well,
If you want to build a strip mall, go ahead, do your thing.
well, all right. I will say, hate to cut it short. We can pick this back up after the opinion piece if you
Yeah,
want.
we can talk Oakland all day, baby.
Because we were going to dig into the NFL draft, and there was a certain subject about the Dubs that I wanted to talk about as well. But let's go ahead and take that commercial.
We got 30 minutes. Let's roll. Let's do
All
it.
right, so we'll hit that. Well, actually, bro, we're at 45 minutes already.
Yeah, we got another 45 minutes then. Let's roll.
All right.
You can skip my opinion piece. We get right to it. I'll take that last Oakland shot as my opinion piece because you got me on it. I keep going. You feel me?
All right. Well, let me run these two commercials right quick, and then we will come back from that commercial break and do our thing there.
Yo, what's up? It's your boy Cole from Planet of Cole and the Raw Impact Unleashed for 4 Aces Presents. Now, I'm going to do a little rundown for the weekly shows we got coming up. Monday, we got Now vs. Then from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. That's Pacific Standard Time. All of these are Pacific Standard Time. Tuesday, iRock Radio from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Also Tuesday, The Sidebar, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Wednesday, Hip Talk Radio from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Also on Wednesday, we got Now vs. Then West from 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. Getting a little late for y'all peeps on the East Coast. Now Thursday, we got the Raw Impact Unleashed with yours truly and Kevin Kendrick, Double K. That's from 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. So y'all check out our weekly shows and holla at your boy. Take it easy. Yo, what's up? It's your boy Cole from the Raw Impact Unleashed and Planet of Cole. Just throwing out there the lineup for the weekend for 4 Aces Presents here on Spreaker.com. Fridays, we got Raporia Presents, or Raporia Presents, 2 p.m., 4 p.m. Pacific. All these are Pacific Standard Times. Now versus Then Deuce from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. That is going to be a monthly show. We also have Revolving Door Fridays with K Double's classroom or Double K's classroom. Also splitting it up with Planet of Cole. Those shows are from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Saturday we got WTF from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And also on Saturday we have the Troll Gazer Gaming Project featuring James Brower from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And on Sunday, we cap off the week with West Coast Bias from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. And remember, all these are Pacific Standard Time. So check all these shows out and holla at your boy. Y'all take it easy.
All right, Suave, I know you got a TV and you was watching. What's your thoughts on that blowout 30-point loss by the Dubs to the Blazers the other night?
Well, to be quite honest, the long layoff, the All-Star weekend team was obviously out of sync, and I don't want to take anything away from the Blazers. They played the game of their season. I mean, Lillard goes out there and gets 51. He's without question, even though he's been snubbed in the All-Star game, let's be honest, there are more guards or more point guards in the West that are still above Damian Lillard. And it doesn't mean that he's not great. It just means that there are some greater players that just happen to get more votes. So I don't think it was a true snub in that sense, especially how the teams are created. But having said that, he went out there and put down a performance. He looked like Steph Curry. I'm sure Portland fans are wondering, they're sitting in the 7th seed right now and going, well, why can't we play like this, 3 out of every 4 games? They might be a damn 3 or 4 seed instead of a 7 seed, and the team's starting to slowly come together. They've had some spurts here and there. You give all credit to Portland. They came out, they played incredible defense. Specifically, the Warriors fought back in the first half. They got down kind of big after the first quarter. It was 42-31 at the end of the first. Then they make a little stride back, and they outscored them 31-26 in the second. At halftime, they're down single digits. You're thinking, okay, it's time for the Warriors to go in. And basically, it was a reversal of fortune. You got to give all credit to Portland. They went out there. The Warriors missed some shots. Portland played good defense. They rebounded the basketball, held us to 17 points in the third quarter while scoring 36 points, which was basically the difference of the game. And by then, Steve Kerr basically kind of threw out the white flag and said, hey, we're getting our asses kicked. So Portland never let their foot off the pedal at all. They went out and scored 33 in the fourth quarter to the Warriors 26. So that was a thorough beating. And I think that, no excuses, but I do believe that the Warriors were thinking maybe this would be an easy game and that they were kind of looking to this is a big road trip for the Warriors, and maybe they were looking past Portland and looking at that Clipper game, because after this game, the Warriors go and they hold on for a victory, but they were pretty thoroughly beating on LA until late, and LA was able to make a little bit of a comeback and make things tight. But I've got a lot of fans, and what's funny is it wasn't even Portland Trailblazer fans. I mean, those people, they haven't come out from under their rock since Aldridge left. Even with the Portland being in the seventh spot and kind of inching back up to maintain their relevance. So, I had a lot of Spurs, especially one. There was one Spurs fan in particular. Told you they weren't this good. What happened? Talking all kinds of boo-boo about the Warriors. And I'm like, look, that was loss number 5.
Thank you.
I didn't want to make excuses. I didn't want to be like, it was the wrong layoff. They were out of sync. They just didn't play well, and Portland played great. That's really the impetus of what happened. But then, then you had a lot of people, and a lot of them were Spurs fans. And I love the San Antonio Spurs for what they've done over the last 2 decades, but their fans they're on the San Francisco Giants fans kind of tip. They just think they're the best thing since sliced bread. Yeah, the annoyance level of those fans has reached a fever pitch, especially with them having beaten Miami after losing to Miami. So, you got them, and they're all like, now they're not going to break the all-time wins record in a season and this and that. And I'm sorry, the Warriors now are still one game better than the pace that the Bulls had. It would have been nice to beat Portland and then follow that up with a beating of LA, and then the Warriors would have been 2 games up. But the Warriors are still 1 game up on where when the Bulls were 47-5, they lost that next game and were 47-6. Well, the Warriors got that game, so they're still a game up. People can go ahead and hold on to their horses.
Well, you can also come at it from this angle, just a different angle. Look at the what is it, the power basketball index, the PBI. Like they have the power football index and they have the power basketball index that determines a team's likelihood to win each game that it has throughout the season. And the Warriors are still favored in every single game that they're playing for the rest of the season, including or excluding the 2 games in San Antonio, in which I believe San Antonio is favored by a couple of points. But other than that, the Dubs are favored to win every game home and away between here on out. So you have to assume that if they're favored to, that the odds are that they're going to. Not to say they will. Don't get me wrong. I am in no way saying that the Dubs are going to go 77-5. Don't get it twisted. Or say what would that be if they lost 2 more? That would be 75-2 or 7. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they're going to do that. But what I'm saying is that to say that after 1 loss, their odds of breaking the Bulls record have went from like 60-something% to nothing is ridiculous. Based off of 1 loss? Really?
And also considering the biggest fact is the schedule makers didn't do us any favors on this road trip, but in the grand scheme of things, they actually did. Because after this 6-game roadie by the Warriors, at the All-Star break, everybody was talking about, we have to go 25-5 to break the record. And not only are we still on pace for that, we've got to go 24-4 or whatnot, but 17 of those, 29 games or however many games are left, the Warriors play 17 of those games at home, where they're undefeated at the moment. I don't expect that to continue. I expect one team to maybe jump up, but at home the Warriors look almost unbeatable.
Well, what was their record at home last year?
I'm going to say unbeatable until they lose. I think they lost 2 games at home all season last year.
Yeah, so it's not feasible
right now,
to see them go undefeated.
Oh yeah. It's absolutely within the realm of possibilities, no doubt about that. And the schedule makers did us a huge favor in that aspect, and I'm sure they didn't foresee us challenging the record. When they came up with the scenario or came up with the schedule, but 17 of their last 20 some odd games are at home, which bodes incredibly huge. And right now they're 1-1 on the 6-game roadie. They face on the 22nd they face the Hawks, and then I'm not sure who they've got after that. But if the Warriors come out of this trip 4-2, 5-1, something like that, they're still well within the realm of getting that record and being the only team to have lost single-digit losses on the season. So they're still in the driver's seat for it. And, they were able to bounce back after that. I mean, it was a thumping. Portland gave us our beating of the year. I mean, that was the beating of the year. Not Oklahoma City, not San Antonio, not LA Clippers, not the Cavs. Portland gave us a 32-point stomping in their house. So I think that really woke the beast up. The beast got tired over All-Star break. Portland came in and they didn't just poke us in the eye. They pulled down their pants and poked us in the eye.
Yep.
So I think that woke the team up. I think that, especially considering it was on the end of a back-to-back, they go and they beat LA in LA. So as long as they do what they're supposed to do, I think they finished this road trip at worst 4-2, at best because they have already got the one loss, 5-1. So, things are still peachy keen for the Warriors. I'm not really worried about, the record will be nice, but as long as we get the title, it's all I really care about.
That's true. Now, speaking of that and looking more towards that, there were the NBA trade deadline passed this past Thursday, and there were actually a couple of good trades that matter, but none that were made by the Warriors. But here's how that NBA trade deadline may affect the Warriors. Everybody's fully aware that the Cavs tried to make a move to be able to stretch the floor a little bit more for when they play teams like the Warriors by going out and getting Randy Foye from the Magic. Here's the thing about it. A part of that trade was sending Anderson Varejao, their backup center, to Portland. Upon sending him to Portland, Portland took the draft pick and immediately waived Varejao. Now, here's the interesting point coming out of media land. The Dubs have Varejao at the top of their list of people to target, and Varejao has the Dubs as the top of the list of the teams that he would like to come to. I could see this being a viable fit. I think that Varejao gives them rim protection and rebounding to go. That's very similar to what Bogut brings to the table with the second team until Festus Ezeli can get back at full strength. And once he's back at full strength, the front court that the Warriors are going to have going into the playoffs, if they sign Varejao, I feel sorry for the rest of the NBA. I genuinely feel sorry for them.
Oh yeah. I mean, I really do think it could be a Joseph Glover type deal where Varejao comes in, the Cavs, sleepwalk through the East, and it's a rematch of the Cavs and the Warriors. And now the Warriors will have Varejao, who will be definitely looking to get back at his former team for letting him go after everything he's been through. So, and then I also think that getting Varejao would be great in 2 reasons. First, it would be the on-court player who's a rim protector. He's a high-energy player. He's been injury-prone the last couple of seasons, but we're not asking him to be a starter. So hopefully, realistically, you're only asking him to play, at most 16 minutes a game, maybe even just 12. Cover a quarter, we'll give most space to the rest until Ezeli comes back, and then we've got even more beef or players with fouls. And then the other aspect is knowing the offense. And I know Tyronn Lue's coming in and he's changed a few things, tweaked a few things. They're trying to run more, become a running team. But Varejao was there through most all of it. So he could definitely be somebody that could help pick apart the game of the Cavaliers. I mean, not just what he's seen this year, but he's been there through the entire Kyrie Irving evolving. You know, he was there for the early LeBron and the new LeBron. He was there through everybody, every player except Randy Ford. You know, and Channing Frye. I believe Channing Frye is the other guy that they got. So, you know, he knows a lot of the ins and outs of the players, a lot of tendencies they like to do. He could definitely help the players when they're watching film. And the Warriors have already beaten the Cavs in the finals, so whatever Verjao could bring to the table is all gravy. You know, so I think that it would behoove the Warriors to make that move, and hopefully the reports are true that A, the Warriors want him, and B, he wants to be a Warrior. So, you know, because there's other teams, I believe there's 5 teams that really want him, including the Spurs. Yeah. And I think the Spurs kind of want him just so he doesn't go to the Warriors.
The Warriors, yeah. You know, they don't really have a spot for him.
Yeah, you know, I mean, so the Warriors would have to waive somebody, but I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility. I mean, I hate to see a guy like McAdoo leave or one of the guys on the back end of the bench, but I do think that I feel in my heart that the Warriors are the team he wants to go to because of one player, Leandro Barbosa.
Yeah.
Leandro Barbosa and Verjao have played on the Brazil team for years. You know, they're real good friends. They've had good times together. And I think he's going to be the impetus or the tipping point that brings Verjao to the Warriors. Besides the fact that, you know, we're a winner.
I was just gonna say that. I was like, there is this other one big elephant in the room reason that, you know, there are only really 2 teams that give him or 3 teams that really give him a real shot at winning the NBA championship, and one of them he was just traded from. You know, so
yeah, that's true. Spurs. But having a friend on that team, having a good friend on that team, I think makes a difference. I think if Leandro Barbosa was a Spur, I would think that the Spurs were in the driver's seat for Verjao. And I think that Leandro Barbosa, he played great at the end of last year and in the playoffs, and he's had some spurts this year. And I think he'll do it again. But I think his biggest contribution is going to be getting Anderson Verjao to come to the Warriors on the 3P or on the back-to-back attempt for a title.
Because I was discussing this with my boy just the other day when I first read the report, or just last night when I just read the report, and with the Saint, of course. And and I looked at it and I said, think about this. You've now got, the reason why they're looking at Verjao, just to clear things up for some Dubs fans that are like, why the hell we want him? Bogut's currently limping and playing on an injury, basically, pretty much taking days off here and there, taking games off, but overall playing on an injury. And Ezeli is probably out for at least another month. So really, at this point, our choice for rim protectors, no offense to these guys, are Mo Spates and Jason Thompson. Unless we can get Verjao out there. And then Bogut every couple of nights. Think about it like this. If you're rotating Verjao and Bogut in that center spot every couple of games, you can give Bogut that rest because Verjao and Bogut are basically the same player with an exception for the fact that Bogut's a better passer. You know, they're both pretty decent at scoring.
And then
go ahead.
On top of that, maybe this move is needed because Jason Thompson hasn't yet been able to find his niche on the team. Yeah. I mean, he's barely getting any minutes. And if he was playing like a Jason Thompson that had always given the Warriors trouble as a Sacramento King, you know, if he'd just been able to come in and, you know, play 10, 12 minutes and average near double or something like that, he'd probably be getting more time. And maybe the Warriors are like, maybe not. We don't really need him. But the Jason Thompson experiment, and I'm going to call it an experiment because I don't expect him to last until this offseason. I think for the most part, it has not been a success. I mean, we don't ask for a ton from our backup centers. I mean, from our main center, Bogut, yeah, we use him in the high post. We utilize his fantastic passing skills and his basketball IQ. We don't ask that from Ezeli. No. You know, so for
just ask him to stand in the fucking
lane to come in. Yeah, exactly. You feel me? So I mean, it really makes you wonder why Thompson hasn't been able to really crack the second team rotation to get minimum good minutes. You know,
well,
so
I think
Verjao has a good chance to come in.
I think that Thompson's job is safe until Ezeli comes back fully from injury. Because I think as long as we got another month or so, Thompson's
Yeah,
job is safe because we need the big body. But I agree with you 100%. I think as soon as Azili comes back and he's ready to play and reclaim his roster spot, his spot in the rotation, Jason Thompson's going to be the most likely person to either lose minutes or be gone altogether. Because like you said, he hasn't really
well, yeah,
flourished even with the second team.
I I think they'll keep him. I think they'll get rid of him in the off season. I don't think they want to just hand him off. Well, I will say it like this: there's a chance they can let him go during the season, but it ain't gonna happen until March, and that means no playoff team will be able to sign him if they let him go at that point.
Yeah.
So then maybe it's a possibility, but at the same time, I don't think that the Warriors want any other team because he can still be signed. He just can't be on a playoff roster, and the Warriors, for damn sure, don't want him to go to a competitive team like, say, Oklahoma City or San Antonio and give him a year's worth of in and outs of what they've been trying to run on offense. So I'm pretty sure that he'll make it through the season. He just won't make it through the off season, I believe, because he hasn't been able to produce. Maybe there's a chance that they see something in practice that we don't because we're not at practice. We only see what happens during the game, and he's not getting almost any time except for garbage minutes. Yeah. So maybe there's a chance they bring him back for one more season. But I have a feeling if Verjao able to come in and do for us what Leandro Barbosa does, which is basically come in, be a spark plug, and for Verjao, it's on the defensive end, which is his bread and butter. So, and a lot easier to be a defensive spark plug than an offensive spark plug, to be quite honest.
All you got to do is have hustle,
if he
really.
Come in, set good picks, and really, I think he'll thrive if we use him just like we used Azili. We'll be giving him touches from Draymond at the rim. He'll get a lot of putback dunks and alley-oop dunks, and he'll love that. And then we'll just ask him to rebound, be a big body presence, and stay healthy. So I think, I like this move for the Warriors. They didn't do anything at the trade deadline because really, honestly, there wasn't anything to be done. I would have liked to have gotten in on the Channing Frye, but he goes to Cleveland. I just got a soft spot for Channing Frye, and I know that he was with Steve Kerr was the GM in Phoenix, and that's kind of where he really developed his three-point range. So I would have liked to have had another stretch player like that. I think that would have been pretty awesome to see the Warriors' death lineup with Channing Frye as the five instead of Draymond, and then you've got 5 players on the floor who can all spread the floor, which is really the reason we have Draymond playing the 5, because not only can he stretch, he can also lock down defense. And while Channing Frye isn't known for his defense, we could play small while still playing slightly bigger. But I like the move of trying to get Verjao, and I hope it comes to fruition.
For sure, 100%. But we'll move on from there because we've been wanting to talk this part all day too. We're gonna kind of just cover the top 10 picks, or the top 15 picks, being that the Raiders and Niners both pick in the top 15. The NFL draft, as we all know, is over about 5-6 weeks away. We still have the NFL Combine and free agency to come. So we're gonna just kind of go off of. We're gonna go pick by pick. I'm gonna give you what Mel Kiper says is going to be taken at that pick. But our main focuses are going to be the Niners and the Raiders. So I'm going to blow through the first 6 picks. We'll kind of give our overall thoughts, and then we'll touch specifically on number 7 with the 49ers and go from there. 1 through 6, the first pick, Mel Kiper has Tennessee Titans taking Laramie Tunsil, offensive tackle out of Ole Miss. Number 2, Cleveland Browns, Carson Wentz, QB out of North Dakota State. San Diego Chargers, DeForest Buckner, defensive end out of Oregon, which I think will be a great pick for them, adding some depth to their defensive line. This is the pick I don't like. Number 4, Jared Goff to California to the Dallas Cowboys. Number 5, defensive back Jalen Ramsey from Florida State to the Jacksonville Jaguars, keeping the homeboy in state. Joey Bosa, defensive end, Ohio State for the Baltimore Ravens. So I'll stick with, and we'll kind of discuss randomly. We'll jump through these 6 picks. One I don't like the most, which is Jared Goff, QB California to the Dallas Cowboys. I don't like the idea of that at all, mainly and primarily because I want him, if the Niners choose to take him at number 7, I want him to be available at number 7 for the Niners to take, because I've always wanted to see the hometown boy come home. But Suave, your thoughts on those first 6 picks that Mel Kiper lays out for us there?
To be quite honest, I like all the picks but the pick at 4. I don't think that the Dallas Cowboys would take Jared Goff. I think that they're going to hold out hope that Manziel comes free from Cleveland, and if
Which they've
Cleveland
said
does
he
go
did.
number 2 quarterback, if Cleveland does go number 2 quarterback, the Carson Wentz from North Dakota State, I definitely think there's a good chance that they let Manziel go, and then Manziel falls in the Cowboys' lap and sits for 3 or 4 years while Romo rides off into the sunset, and then has an opportunity to rebuild his image and his
Career.
and his career. So I don't like that pick. I more see them trying to help their defense, and it could be Miles Jack from UCLA, one of the top linebacking guys. It could also be a guy like Joey Bosa, who I believe they have going at 6. Unless that was before his Buckner, I forget. But Joey Bosa could come in and kind of spell DeMarcus Ware, who they've obviously been missing. They just couldn't afford to pay him. They're starting to get towards that salary cap issue. But I think Miles Jack would be a good fit. Kind of reminds me of what they did in Carolina by getting why can't I think of that kid's name? White kid from Carolina, linebacker, Kuechly.
Luke Kuechly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, they got Kuechly, plus they had another guy behind him that played with him. I forget the guy that broke his arm. I'm just kind of loose with all the names and seeing all these youngsters.
I know who you're talking about, though. I think his last name was Phillips or something like that.
Yeah. So I think they get Miles Jack and pair him up with Sean Lee to make one of the fearsome twosomes in the linebacking core. I could definitely see that. I could also see them possibly going cornerback, depending on if Jalen Ramsey, if Buckner goes third and they don't take corner, I could see them taking Jalen Ramsey. But I think it's going to be Miles Jack. I like Jalen Ramsey for the Jaguars. They definitely need help on the defense. The offense is really starting to come around. Bortles is starting to look like a really good prospect, and they have some weapons that really kind of flourished last year. So, they need to start tightening down on that defense, and then they might actually have a playoff-worthy team in Jacksonville. And at least I would say that they're trending in the right direction. Baltimore,
go ahead.
If they get Bosa, I like that pick. If the Cowboys do go with Jared Goff, I think that then maybe Baltimore goes Miles Jack to kind of replace Ray Lewis. So it's going to be kind of fluid. But I definitely see the 1 and 2 picks. I definitely see it's going to be one of the 2 quarterbacks at number 2. It's either going to be Carson Wentz or it's going to be Jared Goff. Honestly, I'm torn because, like you said, if Jared Goff falls to 7, I really want the Niners to get him.
Yeah.
But if he goes number 2 to Cleveland, then I'm really thinking that the Niners will take the best wide receiver in the draft in Treadwell from Mississippi State. So, they've got, good history with those Ole Miss receivers.
Now here's where we split on the idea for that number 7 pick. Is that I primarily would love for them to see if Goff is there, you take Goff. But here's something that I said a while back that I still say now, and I'm kind of saying it for the first time because it's the first time. I would love to see if Squidward doesn't want to be in San Francisco. Okay, that's fine. He has a very team-friendly contract, so moving him out of San Francisco is not going to be that big of a deal. I say you move him to one of the many men that interviewed for the 49ers head coaching job that wanted to work with him in Hugh Jackson, and you send Colin Kaepernick to Cleveland. It solves their starting quarterback problem for right now, at least in Hugh Jackson's mind. And you give them the number 7 pick, and you take that number 2, and you get Goff. If you're just gonna hold on to Cap, then I'm still kind of, unless you're gonna move Gabbert via trade, I'm still kind of sketchy on taking Goff at 7, only because of the fact that, I want him to be a San Francisco 49er, but I also don't want him to, I see he's the talented, and you don't take a quarterback in the top 10 that's going to be sitting on the bench for the next few years. And sitting behind Gabbert and Cap, Goff's going to be sitting on the bench the next few years.
It depends. If they take Goff and he ends up sitting for let's say 2 years, like Aaron Rodgers did, I believe Aaron Rodgers did for 3 years.
Yeah.
So if Jared Goff comes in, I do understand you don't want him to come into a quarterback quagmire. Yeah. You kind of got Kaepernick, who feels kind of bad about how the franchise talked about him, I guess, to the media a little bit, kind of let things slip, you feel me? And then you got Garrett, who's been the reclamation project, and then you bring in Golf, who's going to challenge these guys. But who knows? I mean, either he sits and gets a chance to learn Chip Kelly's offense, or he comes out and he beats both of those guys out for the starting quarterback spot. Yeah. So, I'm really interested to see what happens. But at the same time, having said that, if they miss out on Golf, I really think they take that kid from Mississippi, Daquan Treadwell, to pair him up with your Anquan Bolden and your Torrey Smith. And I think you could really have a nice three-headed monster.
And here's where I say where we differ. I don't think Treadwell will be on the board. I think Dallas is going to end up taking Treadwell. It's either going to be Dallas or it's going to be Jacksonville. I don't know why. I just feel like they will take one of those two. Will end up getting him. But Kuiper actually, and this is where I like. This is my other pick. If you're not going to take Goff, if Goff's not available, is I would love to see them take Miles Jack. If he doesn't go to Dallas and he falls to number 7, I would love to see them take Miles Jack to pair with Navarro Bowman during his last couple of years, so that Jack has a few years to grow where he's not the Mike linebacker, he's the Sam linebacker. You know what I'm saying? Like Bowman did, have time to grow into that Mike position. So
I totally agree with that.
So I would love that. That's who Kuiper has them taking. I don't know. Like I said, there's so many holes to fill. You can't really fill them all with one pick. It's
hilarious. I mean, think of this. They say that I'm looking at 4 different mock drafts, and the first guy has them going number 4. The next guy has them going number 5. The next guy has them going number 6. So it's all about who goes where in the first couple of picks that'll probably decide where Miles Jack goes. And then the last guy says that he thinks Niners will go wide receiver with the Treadwell kid because he'll end up lasting, and then Miles Jack becomes a Dolphin. So it's just like he's kind of all over the board in a sense. So I almost can't wait for the draft to see where he goes, because I think that's going to set up a lot of the rest of the picks moving forward. I'm also curious about the picks after the Niners pick too.
Very much so. The only reason why, and I'm only going to make this case once, the only reason why I don't see the Niners taking him is because as far as I can see, between youth and experience, if they manage to re-sign Anquan Bolden, the wide receiver position is actually the least amount of their worries. Because behind Smith and Bolden, you have Bruce Ellington, you have DeAndre Smelter. You know what I'm saying? Like they have that kid Eric Rogers that they just signed out of the CFL. They have decent depth.
Treadwell could be a number 1. Those guys are like at best number 2.
See, I can't say that because I haven't seen what this Rogers kid is about. This Rogers kid may have what it takes, and if Torrey Smith excels as much as everybody thinks he's going to excel in Chip Kelly's offense, Torrey Smith may be your number 1, and he's young enough to still be that. He's only 28, 29 years old. He's still young enough to be a number 1 for the next couple of years.
Yeah, but I've seen a lot of reports that say that he doesn't really run a lot of routes out of the route tree, and his main threat is stretching the top off of the defense. So I really think that you need him as your solid number 2, and you need someone to replace Anquan Bolden, and that would be the time to bring in a talent like a Treadwell who could learn from a Bolden and get the ins and outs while he's still under contract.
But then basically you're saying that Bruce Ellington's career is over before he ever really got a chance to start. Bruce Ellington just really got his chance.
No.
You see what I'm saying?
Bolden really only has 1 year left. I mean, a lot of people think that he probably should have retired before this year even started, because he's really, technically, he's still productive, but he's lost a step from the player he used to be, even with the Ravens. So, I mean, there's still good things about him. He still has a good catch radius. He can still run all the routes out of the route tree, but he's just not technically as fast as he used to be, which allows the cornerbacks that play him to be able to not necessarily get juked just because he can run a good route. So the time might be now to bring in someone like a Treadwell who's technically, all dependent. If you look at the teams, if Tennessee didn't need a tackle to really keep Mariota upright, there's a chance Treadwell could go number 1. I mean,
don't get me wrong,
about his talent on the field.
But here's the thing about it. I've watched, and here's where my personal, as Skip Bayless would say, my eye test has come in. I watched a couple of the SEC games on CBS this year. I watched a couple of the Ole Miss games this year, and I'm just not seeing him as that. I don't see in Treadwell what I saw in Amari Cooper. You know how I constantly touted the Raiders need to take Cooper at 4. He's a for sure number 1. It was because of what I saw out of Amari Cooper on the field when I watched Alabama games. When I watched Treadwell last year, I just didn't see what I saw in Amari Cooper. That's why I'm very, very hesitant to take him at such a high pick. I know right now, and you know what though? Here's the great thing about, if you want to say one positive thing about the NFL Combine, it's this. The NFL Combine can really quickly kill hype. Because a player can go into the NFL Combine highly touted and can come out as a 4th round pick. So really, I'll say this. I'll reserve my opinion about Treadwell completely until after I see him at the Combine and how well he does at the Combine. But from what I saw, and don't get me wrong, I'm no Mel Kiper. I'm no Adam Schefter. I'm no, what's the other guy's name? Tim McKay or McVeigh, or you know who I'm talking about.
Todd McKay.
Yeah, Todd McKay.
Uh-huh.
I'm or McShay. That's his name, McShay. I'm no Todd McShay. I'm no Mel Kiper. But from what I saw, I just don't see him as that explosive, take over a team, number 1 wide receiver guy. He's got a lot of speed, but he's also to me, he has a lot of raw talent. So I don't see him as somebody that the Niners, especially a team that needs such a quick, needs to hit, like you said, especially with those first couple of round picks, they need to hit home runs, can take a chance on a Treadwell. Because I think it's taking a chance. I don't think he's for sure going to come out and like I said, even put up Amari Cooper's numbers from last year.
Well, he'll probably be 3rd on the depth chart, unless he's able to beat people out of camp. But I think that, sometimes you've got to select a player. I mean, let's be honest. With the Niners selecting at 7, unless Jared Goff falls to him, who is arguably the top quarterback in the draft, depending on what you like about your quarterback.
Yeah.
If they get Treadwell, you're for sure getting the number 1 player at his position, which is the bonus. And then on top of that, because I love Anquan Boldin so much, I think that he can teach Treadwell Treadwell will almost instantly become probably the outside receiver, and then you move Boldin into the slot role, which will give him more of those shorter routes that he really excels at. And
but why not
learn from Boldin?
But why not have Boldin mentor Eric Rodgers and Bruce Ellington, the 2 young bucks that you already got there? Remember, Bruce Ellington's only in his 3rd year, so it's not like Bruce Ellington is on his way out the door. And he's played in a very stacked 49ers. Like I said, I guess it's where the difference in opinion comes in is I don't necessarily see wide receiver as big of a need with the addition of Eric Rodgers and the DeAndre Smelters that we have. DeAndre Smelters like 6'4", and he proved on multiple occasions he can blow the top off a defense last season. It's just a matter of can he settle in to that number 1 role. Bruce Ellington still has never really been given a chance to shine, and I think Chip Kelly's offense is almost perfect for him to do so in. I think if you re-sign Boldin, it's to mentor those 2. I think you draft Treadwell if Boldin doesn't re-sign. If Boldin doesn't re-sign to mentor those guys, then you bring in a Treadwell who doesn't really need that much mentoring at that top level. That can come in and make an instant impact. But if you're looking if you re-sign Boldin and you're looking for him to mentor, why not have him mentor the guys that are already there? They had a pretty deep core of wide receivers. They just didn't have a quarterback who could get them the ball in the right spot.
That is true. But we're hoping that, for me, I'm hoping that Chip Kelly can get the most out of Gabbert or Kaepernick, whichever quarterback shows that he can do it. And by adding that weapon, you don't allow the defenses to stack the box and really go man-to-man on the outside with Smith and Boldin and whoever you put out there. If you had a guy, I think, like Treadwell, you force other defenses to play out of the nickel, which definitely takes, that one extra guy out of the box unless they drop down the safeties. And I think that would help. Gabbert looked okay last year. Kaepernick was almost a disaster, but basically because teams were forcing him to throw the football a lot. Plus, he played hurt, and I give him credit for that. Yeah. But if you can take one more player out the box it does so much for your offense and not just, it does a lot of things for the entire offense. The offensive line, they don't have to worry about that one extra guy coming down on a funky on a funky blitz. You don't have to. It'll open up an extra running lane for your running back. And Carlos Hyde is a beast. I had him last year on my fantasy team, and until he got hurt, he was doing things for me. I love that kid. Still missing Frank Gore, because
Jared
Carlos Hyde
Hayne.
isn't necessarily. Yeah. I do want to see Jared Hayne get some more touches, and I'm glad that they didn't lose him by throwing him on the practice squad. I really thought some team out there was going to jump on him at least as a kick returner. I'm really surprised that he was able to come back. But for me, if it's not Goff, it's got to be Treadwell.
Okay.
Just because if it's not Goff, then you've got to go with the best player at the position. And since a cornerback's been taken, the linebacker's probably been taken, 2 defensive ends are probably gone, and they kind of like that kid they drafted from Oregon, forgetting his name, but they like him, the 6 or 7 kid. Yeah. But I think it would be good to get the best player at his position in this draft, because honestly, this year, in terms of first round talent, there aren't a lot of first round picked wide receivers out there, which really kind of tells you how good Treadwell is projected to be. Right. And although we hate projections sometimes, I think that having a guy like Treadwell come in and learn under Anquan Bolden would not only boost him up faster, but I think you would be able to put him in that number 1 role right off the bat and have Torrey Smith do what Torrey Smith does, and have Bolden as kind of like your insurance or your third slot receiver or whatnot, and kind of open up that Chip Kelly offense, because I'll be really surprised if they don't do more of that spread offense style to try and open it up to keep the defenses out the box.
Well, let me say this then. But on the same token, even if you do bring in a Treadwell, you don't necessarily have to re-sign a Bolden, because Torrey Smith can play that same mentor type. Torrey Smith has 5-6 years underneath his belt. He's not exactly a spring chicken himself. But
remember, he plays a different style of receiver.
But I think it's more akin to what I think it's more akin to what Treadwell does than what Bolden is. Bolden is a great receiver. He's never really been a blow the roof off the defense type receiver. He's been a guy that possession guy that's going to make those catches for you. That's going to that had the speed, the afterburner speed to be able to break away from defenses. But he was never that guy that was going to blow the top off the defense off the line. Torrey Smith was that, which is why they worked so well together when they were in Baltimore. And Treadwell is more of that type of receiver than he is what Bolden is. But the point I was going to make is the game changer that could come with whether or not they take Miles Jack, because I honestly think if they don't go with Goff, Jack, defense is their next immediate need. That linebacker position, that outside linebacker.
I'll be the first to tell you, bro. I'll be the first to tell you, if Jared Goff goes higher in the draft and Miles Jack, by some miracle, falls down to 7, I would take Jack over Treadwell, no doubt.
Okay, now, with that being said, what I was also going to point out was, and this may make a difference in what the 49ers end up doing there, is that the Rams, and this will probably be the last thing we touch on. We'll get to the Raiders next week, guys. Hopefully we'll have O'Malley back for that talk. But the Rams just recently...
Man, she got lucky. I was about to go off on the Raiders, too. I'm telling you. I'm ready to go ahead.
I will say the Rams released John Laurinaitis and Chris Long. And with the cap space that the Niners have, there are 3 people that I would love to see all 3 land in the Bay Area in some combination of the Niners and the Raiders. And that's John Laurinaitis, Chris Long, and Mario Williams. And there's enough cap room between the Niners and the Raiders, $120 million in cap room between the 2 of them to make that happen, to get all 3 of those guys into the Bay Area. Because if you added Chris Long or Mario Williams to that Niners defensive line, and then added John Laurinaitis to the linebacking core, that would instantaneously make that Niners defense front 7 one of the most formidable front 7s in all of football. And the same thing goes for the Raiders. If you added Laurinaitis to that linebacking core with Khalil Mack and them boys, and you added either Mario Williams or Chris Long to that defensive line, it's over. It's over for all offensive lines to face that front 7, because there's so many pieces that are already there.
Yeah, I would like Chris Long to go to the Raiders. I think that with Justin Tuck retiring, if Chris Long, depending on what they do in the draft, if Chris Long hasn't been signed by then, I think that's almost a no-brainer. even just from a heritage standpoint or a homer standpoint, I would like to see Howie Long's son come back to the Raiders and kind of help this team elevate itself in the Justin Tuck role, where he wouldn't have to play every down and would actually be able to stay fairly fresh. I like Laurinaitis too, but I think that the picks they made this year, we've got to. I also think that there's a chance the Raiders try and do a reclamation project. Rolando McClain resurrected his career in Dallas and looks like a top 10 linebacker. And I know some people will go, top 10 linebacker? Well, if you look at his stats from last year, Rolando McClain had an excellent year last year and built upon a year that he had a fairly good year before that. And I would actually like to see him come back to the Raiders and help bolster that linebacking core and really kind of show the player that the Raiders had drafted before he got into his personal issues. I think that would be good, not only for him, but for the Raiders and the Raiders fan base that really kind of felt jilted by the fact he couldn't get his act together outside of the realm of football. And now he goes to Dallas, he resurrects his career, and he looks like a damn good linebacker. So I would definitely like to get Long and damn it, I just flaked on his name. McClain. And the other kid, McClain, back in the silver and black. And I would like to see Laurinaitis possibly go to the Niners just to give them some more of that depth that they were known for just a few years ago.
Now, and see, that's the key thing for me, is that's the deal I'll take. Y'all can have Rolando McClain and Chris Long, and I'll take Mario Williams and John Laurinaitis. Give them to me.
Yep.
Because,
and then you got, and that's kind of a makeup for Mario Williams and the Niners too, because the Niners, I was at that game when the Niners screwed the fan base by winning against the Texans when they should have lost, and basically lost out on who I thought they should have took in Reggie Bush. But now you get the guy that the Texans took went by losing that and getting the number one pick, and you have a chance to get a Mario Williams. So I definitely like that pick. If and for all these players that we're talking about, I think McClain has been fairly healthy since coming back to the NFL. But Long has had some injury trouble, Laurinaitis has had some injury trouble, and Mario Williams has had some injury trouble. But if we're talking, fantasy style, if they can come back and stay healthy, I like that for both teams.
And that's the key thing about it, is that here's where the key part comes in for both teams. Both teams can help those players stay healthy because they have other players that they can rotate in. You know what I'm saying? Like Mario Williams can come to the Niners, but the Niners still have Ian Williams. They still have Mike Purcell. They still have, Glenn Dorsey. They still have some guys. Arik Armstead, a Sacramento native. Arik Armstead, all of those guys combined create this nice rotation, which is where the Niners were when they had like Justin Smith and all them boys, that they could rotate through that offensive or that defensive line so that you didn't always have the same guys out there, but you had the same level of pass rush production. And that's what they could get. If they added a Mario Williams to that depth, is that you would get that veteran presence that Justin Smith provided for us before he retired. And then, like you said, you add Laurinaitis to that linebacking core, and there you go. You're talking about Ahmad Brooks, Navarro Bowman, John Laurinaitis, and Aaron Lynch. There you go. You're talking about, and not to mention the fact that Laurinaitis brings the ability to cover. Not, he may not bring as good of a pass rush, but he brings the ability to cover. But all right, guys, so we'll continue talking NFL draft next week. We'll get to them Raiders. We'll get to some of these other teams, some of these top storylines in both baseball, basketball, and football. But we've closed it out. We were actually only planning on doing an hour, so y'all got a bonus half hour out of us today. And till next week, y'all, we'll call it a day. Bro, you got any last words for him?
Yeah. Any mock draft that says the Raiders are going to take Ezekiel Elliott, you need to slap yourself. But I understand what you're talking about, but there's just no damn way. We're not bringing back the Bo Jackson, Marcus Allen tandem crap again. But, Murray ain't been exactly a vision of health until last year. So, I don't know. I just don't see that happening. But who knows? Maybe they don't want to go for another cornerback. But I can't wait to talk about him next week.
There you go. All right, guys. Till then, peace.